And the last headliner topic on this episode of the Rock News Roundup podcast. Speaking of Southern Ontario and famous people who have come from this part of the world, this is actually a very, very sad story. I actually just read about this right before I started recording this episode of the podcast, and that is Garth Hudson. The multi-instrumentalist and organist for the band, one of the greatest bands of all time, passed away today at the age of 87 at a nursing home in Woodstock, New York. Garth Hudson, obviously a son of Southern Ontario. He's from like the London Stratford area of Ontario. And Garth Hudson was the last living member of the band, the legendary The Band, that featured mostly Canadian members, except for Levon Helm, who was from Arkansas. The band obviously got their start here in Canada when they were the backing band for Ronnie Hawkins, who was an American singer who came up to Canada with Levon Helm and made quite a splash here in the 60s. Got together this band that featured Robbie Robertson, Levon Helm, Rick Danko, Richard Manuel, and of course, Garth Hudson, and put together them as his backing band. They eventually went on to back up Dylan when he went electric. And then, of course, after that, they went on to become the famous band. And Garth Hudson was the last living member of the band. We lost Robbie Robertson, of course, back in 2023, which was a huge loss. Levon Helm passed away in 2012. And then we lost other members of the band a long time ago, 25 years ago or 26 years ago now. We lost Rick Danko, the bass player of the band. He died in 1999. And then Richard Manuel, the singer and piano player for the band, died back in 1986. And really, one of the most legendary bands of all time, one of the most legendary Canadian bands of all time. Like I said, Levon Helm of the band, he's from Arkansas. He wasn't Canadian, but they were all Canadian. Robbie, Rick, Richard, and Garth were all Canadian, all hailing from here in Southern Ontario, where I'm from. Robbie Robertson, like between Hamilton and Toronto, and other guys in London and Simcoe and Stratford and all these different parts of Southern Ontario. And I always just really thought that was really cool, because I think of the band as being on the same level as those other huge bands that I love, whether it be the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or the Beach Boys or Pink Floyd. Like, to me, the band really is up there in the upper echelon of the greatest classic rock bands of all time with those names. And the fact is that they were from Canada. These guys were from my part of the world. The Beatles are from Liverpool, Led Zeppelin from England, the Beach Boys from California. But it was awesome to have this legendary band, this band that backed up Dylan, being from my part of the world. And I always thought that was really, really cool. And I got into the band later on in my musical education. I wasn't really familiar with the band when I was young. Of course, I knew songs like The Wait, which is a huge hit, probably their most famous song. But then I got into the band much later on. When I was in college, when I was in university, I really got into the band. I really got into roots rock and really into classic rock. I devoured every album from the band. Actually, when I went over to England, I went over to London, England in 2006 to go visit my buddy Ryan, who we've had here on the channel. He was living over there, and I hadn't had any of the band albums on CD, and I was at HMV on Oxford Street, and they had all the band albums for sale on CD, and so I think I picked up pretty much the entire band discography and put them all in my backpack and brought them back to Canada. My backpack was like sagging as I was traveling back to Canada, because I had all the band CDs in my backpack. And then when you think about Garth Hudson as a musician, he was the next level. Like the other members of the band, obviously extremely musically talented, but Garth Hudson was the next level. He was musically trained. He was classically trained. He was a multi-instrumentalist who could play so many different things. And the band wanted him to join them, right? Because they thought, this guy really knows what he's doing. This guy can elevate our music and our sound. And that's exactly what Garth Hudson did with the band. He elevated their sound. He brought another level of musicality to their sound, where they could expand their songwriting and try different things and kind of know the theory and the musicality behind the music that they were making. And so when he joined the band, they were actually paying him $10 a week, because he was the guy that knew how to play the music and to show them how to be a great band. So Garth Hudson really was the game changer for the band. And then when you think about what he brought to them, because obviously the band was pretty much a roots rock and roll band, but then Garth Hudson had all these insane keyboard parts that he would play on their songs. When you think about Chest Fever from music from Big Pink, that epic organ intro, that is all Garth Hudson. And then it kicks into the rest of the song. He sets the stage for that song. And then when he played the Chest Fever live, he added another intro onto it called The Genetic Method, which was another huge organ-based piece that really just showed the mastery of Garth Hudson and what he could do on the keyboard. And then you think about other ones, his intro on This Wheels on Fire, which sounds almost like a video game. It sounds like Sega or Nintendo on This Wheels on Fire. Great intro for that. The clavinet that he plays on Up on Cripple Creek. Garth Hudson was a game changer when it came to the band, and I'm so sad that he passed away, because not only have we lost a legendary musician and a good soul and somebody who's brought us so much joy musically, he is the last of this very special group of people that are no longer with us. You know, when you think about the Beatles, we still got Ringo, Paul, they're still with us, thankfully. Thank God that those guys are still with us. I want them to be with us as long as possible. When you think about the Beach Boys, we've lost some members of the Beach Boys, but we still got Brian Wilson with us. To a lesser extent, we still got Mike Love with us. But with Garth Hudson passing away, it really is the end of an era. He is the last surviving member of that original lineup of the band, and to lose him is the end of an era, and to lose all the members of the band. I got to see Levon Helm live, but I want to say about a decade ago, a bunch of years ago, before he passed away, and that was one of the best shows I've ever seen. He was older. Obviously, he couldn't sing the same way that he could when he was younger, but his drums were still just spot on. He was just holding down that band even at his age, and I was so happy to be able to see a living member of the band play live while they were still with us. Of course, we lost Levon. We've lost Robbie 2 years ago, back in 2023. Robbie Robertson was another huge loss, and now to lose Garth Hudson, the last living member of the band, is just devastating. So sending lots of love and thoughts out to Garth Hudson's family and friends and fans, all of us who've been listening to the band and listening to their music for all these years. Lots of people out there have been listening to them much longer than I have. Sending thoughts out to everybody. Garth Hudson of the band passes away at 87 years old, the last living member of the band. It's the end of an era, and I've been listening already to a lot of the band. I put Chest Fever on. I was listening to a lot of that. I'm going to keep listening to a lot of the band today in celebration of the life of Garth Hudson. So Garth Hudson, rest in peace.